Welcome in, guys, to the off-season podcast number 3. And today, all we're going to talk about in these off-season discussions is this run by Alabama in the last decade or so and how it came to be. So they had a very good year in 08, right? And they lost to Utah in, I think it was the Fiesta Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. Either Fiesta or Sugar. I can't. No, it's Sugar Bowl. Sugar Bowl. But how did this happen exactly? Now, what I'm going to say in the statements I'm going to make in this podcast, it may sound like I'm taking credit away where credit is due to the players and coaches of Alabama through the years. I'm not doing that. Alabama. Let's go ahead and start with the breaks that Alabama has caught. And we're just going to go year by year. 2009, they block a field goal against Tennessee in which it would have probably ended Alabama's chances at going to the national championship in the first place. If that didn't happen and they went to the SEC championship, they would have with or without that game. So maybe there would have been a torch carried by that SEC championship to win that. You know what's interesting, though, as they had 2 block kicks. It was Cody who had both block kicks. The Mount Cody, remember that nickname? But people don't ever point this out, that ball wasn't dead when fans and players started storming the field. Nick Saban was even looking for a penalty flag, it looked like. When everyone else around him was celebrating, he was just looking around before really getting excited about the win. Granted, Nick Saban's not full of emotions. That ball wasn't dead as Cody was ripping off his helmet. Fans were storming the field. And a lot of people don't like to point this out. Illegal substitution. Remember Texas Tech versus Texas back in 2000? That's the year before, 2008, where Texas Tech had all those penalties for the fans storming the field before the end of the game, right? With 1 second left to play. And granted, there was guaranteed to have another play. Well, it's kind of similar. That should have been at least one 15-yard penalty for Alabama, against Alabama, I should say, in favor of Tennessee, making it a chip shot field goal. And odds are you don't block 3 field goals in one game. That's just the odds. So Tennessee would win. Now Alabama catches a break based off of the refs not really caring, really, as Alabama finally dove on the ball, and that was when the play was dead, long after people rushed the field. Not taking away Alabama's great run there. They went undefeated. They beat Florida that year. I think that was Tim Tebow that they beat, their first national championship. Oh, wait. Colt McCoy goes down in the first quarter of that BCS national championship. You know, the very prestigious quarterback out of Texas, finalist for a Heisman with Crabtree and Bradford in 08, and really a guy that got Texas into the spotlight after Vince Young. Yeah, he goes down and Alabama rolls on to win 37-21. Who knows what would happen if Colt McCoy was in the game? And maybe Alabama would have won both. I don't know. That's possible, but I'm just saying they caught a couple breaks in that season. Fast forward to 2011. Lose at home against LSU and lost your division. Friday night, after a university tragedy at Oklahoma State with an undefeated season, they lose in upset fashion to Iowa State. But then they go out the next week, or the next couple weeks, blow out their opponent. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 game. I remember they had a very impressive win in Bedlam against Oklahoma, blew them out of the water. LSU wins the conference championship in the SEC. Should have been LSU, Oklahoma State. Most years, LSU, Oklahoma State. That would be the national championship. Les Miles gets to go up against his former school. That would have been fun to watch. Nope. Alabama's going to get a free pass into the championship. Unfair for LSU to have to face the same team twice after they beat them in Tuscaloosa. Because that was, I'm not going to say, if you play a top 4 team so many times and so often, I just don't see how exactly Alabama gets another shot at LSU. That's what they look, and LSU's kind of looking, we got to play these guys again. Alabama was physical. They're a good team. They were a top 3 team that season. It was Alabama, LSU, Oklahoma State, but maybe they were the third best team. I think the better team was the one that won on the road in a showdown of field goals. There's only one touchdown in that whole series, by the way, that whole sequence. Frankly, I think Oklahoma State would have beat LSU. That offense was on fire. That defense wasn't great, but they were they were good enough. I think they would have beat LSU. I think Alabama honestly would have struggled with Stanford if they had to go up against Stanford. 2012. This one's so simple. You lose to Texas A&M at home. Another home loss for Alabama that we talked about after they lost at home against LSU and should have lost at home against Tennessee. But then they got a shot simply because Ohio State has some stupid sanctions, to be honest with you, because it's that same issue of a likeness that we talk about, and that when it comes to our enjoyment in video games, we're all for the likeness of players. But when we're talking about them selling their own memorabilia in the form of tattoos, then all of a sudden we're fine with dropping NCAA sanctions and a bowl ban on an undefeated team. Ohio State versus Notre Dame should have been that championship. And frankly, Notre Dame wasn't very good. I think Alabama was the best team, but they weren't the most deserving team, and it's all about deserving. And the BCS National Championship would have been Notre Dame versus Ohio State, the 2 undefeated teams in the FBS. Notre Dame wasn't very good. I think Ohio State was slightly better, even though they really weren't as good as Alabama. They were more deserving. Don't lose at home, Alabama, to a freshman quarterback, a redshirt freshman quarterback that took that win, and he's still living off that win today. He wouldn't have made the pros if he didn't beat Alabama. He would not have been in Canadian Football League even if he didn't beat Alabama. Johnny Manziel is the most overrated college quarterback of all time, and he's still riding those coattails to this day. Just because Alabama choked under pressure. Fast forward 2015. This break is more to do with great play calling by Nick Saban, and there's no credit taken away here whatsoever. That onside kick, I don't think they were stopping Deshaun Watson the rest of that game. That onside kick sealed the deal. Great play call on the surprise onside kick. You deserve the national championship, but frankly, I don't know if you would have done it without that. So, yeah, you deserve the national championship. 2017 was the most recent of these runs, and boy, did they get a huge break. This was the biggest break that they've had. You can make an argument that those breaks that they've had in the past, the 2009 breaks with Colt McCoy in Tennessee, you can't really control that. Other people controlled that. Ohio State got sanctioned. They knew what they were doing. They got in trouble. So they got to go. And then against LSU and Alabama, the computer said something, whatever. But this one was a selection committee of people. And you had 4 teams. They only considered 2, which is the worst part to me, because the 2 that were considered weren't very good options, but you had 4 teams here that could have been considered. Ohio State's who won the Big Ten, although they got blown out in Iowa City against Iowa. They won the Big Ten. USC, who won the Pac-12, got blown out against a pretty good Notre Dame team. Lost to Stanford, but they were on fire. UCF, who went undefeated and actually had similar wins to Alabama and won the American. And finally, you had Alabama, who, let's just run down their resume. Their best win was against, I think it was number 17 LSU, which lost to Troy, by the way, in the Sun Belt at home in Baton Rouge. I don't know if you've ever heard of Troy or Brandon Silvers, but yeah, he had a field day on LSU's defense, and LSU lost to them and somehow was ranked number 17. While, even though Ohio State lost, yeah, they did. They lost bad. Really bad to Iowa. Iowa was 8-5. They finished 8-5. They were 7-5, really, but 8-5 nonetheless. Guess what, though? Ohio State, the only loss for Wisconsin, that they beat number 9 Penn State. They beat number 16 Michigan State 48-3 by 45. Oh, yeah. And I didn't even mention this. LSU, who was overrated at number 17, somehow ranked over 9-3 Washington State, 9-3 Oklahoma State, 10-2 Memphis, and 9-3 Northwestern. Somehow. LSU also got blown out, by the way, against Mississippi State. Blown out by Mississippi State, who was 8-4, who is also Alabama's crowning achievement that year. LSU outgained Alabama in that game. Oh, yeah, and we want to talk about Mississippi State too, right? Yeah. Mississippi State game. In a 4-loss team, they weren't bad. I think 23 was a good ranking for them at the end of it. But that game went down to the wire. See, Ohio State might have lost to Iowa by a lot, and that's not nearly Mississippi State. Beating Mississippi State on the last second and getting outgained by LSU is not nearly as bad as that. But if you look at the good, what did Alabama do good? They got ran off the field against Auburn. Their one challenge. They got outgained by LSU, who lost to Troy. And they should have. It took a miracle to beat Mississippi State on the road. While Ohio State, their comparable team to LSU, the best win for Alabama that year, they beat by 45, 48-3. They beat Penn State, who's a top 10 team in comeback fashion. They showed a lot of grit in that ball game. They beat Wisconsin. The only team to beat Wisconsin, and frankly, they would have probably won by 3 or 4 scores if JT Barrett wasn't just coming off of knee surgery. Literally 6 days, less than a week before that game. Oh, yeah, and did I mention that Ohio State's second loss was to Oklahoma out of conference, which Alabama, last I checked, their best game out of conference was against an average 6-6 Florida State team. Then they had, I guess you can say Fresno State was their best. And Fresno State was, a 4-loss team, I think, in the Mountain West. Colorado State was also there, and then Mercer was there. Ohio State should have just scheduled, I don't know. I'm not even going to say we should schedule. Ohio State should have scheduled FCS. I'm not even going to say that. I'm going to frankly just say, let Ohio State schedule the top school in the MAC. I mean, Alabama scheduled the second best team in the Mountain West. Is it fair for us, instead of Oklahoma, to schedule the top school in the MAC? Alabama played 9 Power 5 teams, and Ohio State played 11 in the regular, or at that point, come Selection Sunday. They had 13 games played. Alabama had 12. The only games that weren't Power 5 that season for Ohio State was the triple option in Army. and you doors off of them. Alabama gets, well, you might say, well, that loss was too much to overcome for Ohio State. Okay. But was it too much to overcome for an Alabama team? UCF. Well, they beat Maryland 38-10, wasn't even close. Memphis ended up in the top 20, so only 3 spots below LSU, the best win. And they had to face them twice. They blew them out the first time, beat them the second time in a tremendous football game, beat a ranked South Florida team at the time. So why exactly does Alabama get the nod over Ohio State? Because Ohio State loses to Iowa, but then UCF does what they're supposed to do, run the table, beat a Power 5 opponent, win as many ranked games as Alabama did, and somehow they get to this point where they're robbed out of the playoff over Bama. Now, I could see Ohio State getting in over UCF, and the reason is because Ohio State beat a bunch of teams that UCF didn't even get to play. And that's the only reason. I mean, UCF didn't play a caliber like Wisconsin, Penn State, and Michigan State was still 4 spots above Memphis. And Oklahoma as well was in the top. They were the number 2 team in the country in the final rankings. I think they were 2 or 3. I can't remember for sure. Yeah, 2, because it was 3 versus 4 in the championship. Alabama got new life, and frankly, Clemson wasn't that good. I would have honestly, if you would put UCF against that year's Clemson team, looking back on it, UCF would have probably won that game, and Ohio State certainly would have beat that Clemson team, because that Clemson team that you saw that year was not nearly the same as the Clemson team the year before. It might have been low scoring, but, I mean, Ohio State was winning games where they weren't scoring a lot of points. Ohio State was winning games against great defenses like Wisconsin and Michigan State. So that was the biggest robbery of them all. And frankly, UCF did go undefeated and Ohio State had 2 losses. So, hey, there was an argument for UCF to get in over Ohio State too. I'm not going to shy away from that because, frankly, UCF wasn't that bad. I mean, they didn't play a 1-score game until they went to SMU, a kind of a sleepy environment on a Saturday night game. And then after that, it was South Florida, a ranked team, and Memphis, a ranked team, who they already blew out earlier in the season. And as I previously mentioned regarding LSU and Alabama, beat a team once, especially when they're a top 25 team, beating them twice is a tall task. It's tough for any team to win against the same team twice. And that takes a true championship team or a championship caliber team to beat a top 25 team 2 times in the same season. Not too many people have to do that. When's the last time that had to happen for a team to make the playoff? I can't recall at the top of my head, playoff or BCS national championship. I can't recall at the top of my head the last time someone had to beat a top 25 team 2 times in one season, the same team, where you got more film, you have experience, and your back's against the wall. And UCF found a way to win in the second game. They blew them out in the first game. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say here is And this is for you to decide for yourself. After I laid out all this stuff, is this dynasty for Alabama fraudulent, or is it true? Because frankly, all championship teams have things bounce their way. Clemson should have lost to Syracuse. They had a fateful catch from Hunter Renfrow when Chase Bryce threw the ball to Hunter Renfrow that beat Syracuse. Alabama caught that break in 2017, as I mentioned. 2016 was again Clemson. Clemson caught the break of everyone losing at the same time. You lost in November late. The Pitt probably shouldn't have been there. Oh yeah, in 2018 as well, you had a close call with Texas A&M for Clemson, by the way, too. They caught a break with that. Every championship team catches a break, it seems like. I told you about Alabama's break, and frankly, allowing 43 points against Ole Miss is another break for a championship team. 2014 Ohio State, you lose to a very average Virginia Tech team at home, and you nearly lose at home against Penn State. And you also catch a break, not necessarily catch a break, but you also had the dice against you when your quarterback goes down in the last game of the season against Michigan. Yes, they caught a break because a lot of people, some people may say they caught a break because they don't think they would have won the championship with JT Barrett instead of Cardale Jones. I can go on and on. 2013 Florida State, I can't really think of anything. In the championship, Florida State kept allowing Auburn to get back in the game, but they just kept fighting back. Honestly, that wasn't much of a break, but point is, every team has certain events that happen to them that doesn't really happen, and it's kind of a rarity. So in college football, and this is what makes it so great, is you get certain things to roll your way when you're a championship team, and you get some people to start buying in and believing in you because things are going your way. It's the magic of sports. Things just so happen to be lucky for you, and if you're a great team, you see that lucky stuff happening to you and you take advantage of it. Personally, that's how I feel Alabama has done it for all this time. Is they've seen the every season they've seen the opportunity and they ran away with it. And I don't blame them. They deserve all the national championships. So in my opinion, yes, this is truly a dynasty. Breaking it down, because certain things happen in a college football season. It's what you do with those certain things. Ohio State caught a break against Penn State in 2016 or 2017, sorry, and then they go on and just get blown out against Iowa. See, not everyone. Ohio State's not a championship team because they didn't catch that break. The only team I can think of that caught some sort of break, that kick return against South Florida, that didn't get their shot was UCF. And I truly believe that UCF should have got their shot looking back at it. And I keep going back and forth with this for the last, since that selection Sunday. I've always gone back and forth with this on UCF, Ohio State, UCF, Alabama, UCF, Ohio State kind of thing. Just keep going back and forth, and I'm probably going to go back to thinking Ohio State deserved it, or I'm probably going to be like, let's face it, Alabama deserved it at some point. But point is, some things you can't control. It's just what you do with those things that you can't control. Baylor against Oklahoma was RG3's Heisman statement game, right? And the quote from the commentator, I forget who the commentator was, but the quote was, sometimes you'd rather be lucky than good. Well, sometimes when you get lucky, it's how good you are that can make a championship team. Teams get lucky. You're not going to win a championship if you aren't great. Great teams, when they get lucky, they take advantage of it. Good teams, when they get lucky, sometimes they don't take advantage of it. Ohio State got lucky against Penn State, and they didn't take advantage of it against Iowa. Same thing you could say about Ohio State this past year. I know I'm making Ohio State references, but Ohio State got lucky against Penn State again, and then they got blown out against Purdue. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll catch you next time.